Welcome to Plugged In Chatham-Kent, your business podcast. I'm Andrew, working in economic development and communications. And to the right of me, I have, who are you?
I am Pam Morgan. I am a representative with Freedom 55 Canada Life.
Awesome. It's impossible to not look at the camera, isn't it?
I know. Well, when you're introducing me to the camera, it's like it's a person.
I know.
We have to make eye contact.
Just think of this people are listening, not watching. I get a lot of that, okay? So you're fine.
So is it actually, like, it will be televised? Like,
oh, and there's video. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. A bit of both.
Hopefully I dress nice enough.
You're fantastic. Okay. So today we're here to talk a bit about a topic that is sometimes challenging for people to think about, but is really, really important. We're talking about business interruption and continuity and those sort of plans, and not from the perspective of like fires and floods and those sort of things, which are also really important. And we had a podcast a while ago with discussing the 7 farms down and what happened when there was a fire at their location and that sort of thing. But this is the different side of it. This is the personal side in many ways. So you're the expert on this, which is why thank you so much for being here. We're talking about the illnesses and other aspects of that. So I don't know if you want to discuss or tell people why you're the expert on this and that sort of thing. So what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Yeah. Just tell me.
Okay.
It's all good.
Okay. So I don't necessarily believe that there's a person out there that has all of the answers by any means. I do have access to an immense amount of specialists and such in this area and have picked their brains with every question and detail that I have come up with so far. I personally feel that this is a valuable tool to have as part of your business plan, simply because I have in the last year witnessed a personal friend who has experienced such an illness, and that person is a small business owner, small enough business that there's only a single employee. Unfortunately, when this individual became ill, it was extremely sudden, immediately off work. The employee was out of work because there was no timeline as to when the business would open back up again.
So they lost income, they lost all of these things, major change in their life.
Yep.
And not to their fault, but they hadn't maybe known to plan for this sort of thing,
Correct.
Right?
It was something that this person did not see coming, did not even feel it was a valid risk factor to worry about. Yeah. Now that person was prepared to a certain extent.
Sure.
Did have a disability insurance plan in place.
Okay.
With illness, isn't always necessarily going to be covered by a disability plan. It depends on the effect that illness has on you. Okay. So there's a lot of different ways that plans can be structured to cover different things, whether it is a disability, an illness, or a combination of the two, as to how people want to structure them.
How would you define illness? What sort of things?
So illness, there's a huge array of different illnesses that could be covered by this. To name some of the most common would be things like cancer, heart, stroke. Those are your big ones that people are covering. But it could be something like ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. Not necessarily something that the average person is going to think of as being a high risk factor for them, but is it completely unforeseen as a possibility? No, it's a possibility for people. So there's a huge array of different things that are covered, and we could, if somebody's concerned about a specific thing that they feel they're of higher risk for, we most definitely could look into what options were available for that specific illness.
And what about, would illness also include things like somebody, I hate to say it, gets hit by the bus scenario, right?
Right.
I always like to say wins the lottery, but it doesn't actually apply in this situation.
No.
It's the actual getting hit by a bus situation.
Yeah. So that's why there's different options and ways that this can be structured, because every situation would have to be critiqued as to what sort of condition the person was left in. But typically something like that is going to fall more into some sort of disability coverage. So it's not necessarily a medical illness that the person is recovering from, something in the lines of like cancer, heart, stroke, but they're still not able to work. So since that person is not able to work, what do? They still have expenses. They still have business expenses, loans. They still have their own personal expenses, mortgage, utilities, household, family, things like that, that they want to make sure are covered and protected.
So, so what type of, if somebody was saying, what type of insurance is this? What type of protection is it? Do you know what's it called? Is there an official title? Forgive my ignorance.
Yeah.
On this.
So it's gonna depend on the companies that you're with as to what sort of names are put on different products. But you're going to be looking at things like some sort of critical illness insurance, disability insurance, sickness insurance. Okay. There's different names that could apply depending upon what company you choose to go with.
I've heard business interruption insurance, that type of thing, where basically it's looking at anything that can interrupt your business. Yeah. That sort of idea, right? So
you can definitely go, another one is business overhead insurance or coverage is another way of looking at it. But yeah, it looks at, it's not going to cover your personal expenses, but if you have a lease for your business, if you have loans for your business, if you have employees that you are paying out, it's going to cover things like that as opposed to paying your mortgage and your home utilities and your personal car payments or anything like that that's not business related.
But if you lost your main source of income or a big source of income for a family, that right there, to be able to know that your business is at least be consistent, you can at least not have that weighing over you while you're dealing with the rest of it. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's a huge component, especially for, I would imagine, maybe I'm wrong, but a lot of very small businesses or new businesses that are encountering this sort of thing. Is that fair? Is that sort of...
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Now, there can be some limitations on some types of insurance because they're based on your income.
Okay.
So some insurance options won't be available to startup businesses within the first year, sometimes 2 years, depending upon the company, what their guidelines are. Because if we don't know what you're bringing in, it's hard for us to then say what is a fair amount for covering your expenses. So if you're looking at a typical disability insurance plan, we're going to look at what your annual wage is, whether that's a salary, an hourly wage, if there's any bonuses that you are consistently receiving, things like that, and then go from that to determine what the value is of that disability insurance that you could qualify for.
Okay.
So, and business overhead expense as well, until that business has developed and we've seen what sort of expenses are consistently being seen in that business. We don't really know.
So this is ideal for, say, like a year 2, 3 sort of business, that type of thing?
For the business overhead and some of the disability insurance, correct. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not worth looking into. There could be options that are available within the first year, especially like the critical illness insurance. That's something that is not based on your income. The way that a lot of illness insurances work is it's an individual payout. So you have a set amount that you say, okay, I think I could potentially live off of this for a year, or this is going to cover my expenses for a year, 2 years. So you just cap it at a set amount. So whether that's $100,000, $200,000, whatever you feel comfortable with. And then provided it's a rational amount, you don't come to an insurance company and say, I want $3 billion worth of insurance. A little eccentric.
Might put up a red flag or two. Yeah. Unless you're Elon Musk. Maybe
he might have an insurance plan out there for that. That's entirely possible. But yeah, it's something that it's going to be that set amount that's instantly paid out. And then you decide where you want to spend that. So you can put it towards whatever things you dub necessary.
That's right.
If you're diagnosed with a terminal illness and they say you have 3 weeks to live, go out with a bang. Like, take your family on a massive vacation, right? But yeah, if you know that I'm going to fight this, I'm going to win, and you're determined, and you go into it and you're like, okay, I just need to cover these expenses. You can pay your bills and then still come out at the end and be like, okay, look, we didn't go into debt for this.
Yes.
We're still in a good spot. And a lot of people, unfortunately, when we're talking businesses, unless you've established a business where there's others that can run it for you while you're out, like the friend that I spoke of, when that business closed, the business closed. So starting back up again when they returned to work, it was who's coming back for clientele?
Yeah.
Because all those people had an 8-month window where potentially some of them never needed to go see somebody else.
Yeah.
Great. But anybody that did seek those services in that time window had to go elsewhere. Yeah. And you take a chance that they maybe found somebody else that has better hours to accommodate them, or a price point that accommodates them better, or just they had some sort of, they meshed well with the person. It's entirely possible.
Yeah. And so part of economic development, we discuss things about business retention, right? So there's always the expansion, which looks really good. You get the good photo ops, you get that sort of thing. But the business retention side is just as important. If a business can't keep its doors open, it's a loss to the community.
Yes.
It's so much harder to bring in new business rather than say, okay, let's help make sure your doors stay open, and then we can have the conversation about expansion and those sort of things. But you've got to make sure those doors stay open. So,
and you have to understand too that people are going to have a little bit of hesitation when they return. That, is this a stable place for me to return my business to?
Yeah.
Right? Like we all have illness, and we all know that it's not necessarily just a cut and dry, gone, done, over with. A lot of these things can be reoccurring problems. And
just to be clear, we're not talking about somebody getting sick for like a weekend or 4 or 5 days.
No, this is a significant prolonged period. Yes.
All right.
Depending upon the plans, there can be different timelines involved as to when payouts would start. So, for example, disability insurance could have a 30-day window that you only have to wait 30 days and then it starts paying out. Others will have a 90-day window or even beyond. In all of those things are variables that are discussed as to what your priorities are, what sort of nest egg do you have to live off of in that window. Do you have the liquidity that you can be sustained for 90 days? Or do you have to look at the 30 days? And depending upon the startup of the business, it's a huge difference there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you've got a business that's been in around for 15, 20 years, 30 years, and you know how much you need to live and how long, you may look at this and go, well, I've got this much saved, so 90 days makes total sense.
Yep. And you could be in a business where you're in the position where you're like, I can go home, my business will run, I can collect a paycheck, and I only need to cover moderate expenses.
Sure.
So like maybe they don't need a huge amount of coverage. Maybe they don't need to cover that business. The business is somewhat self-sufficient. They just need a little something else because they know they're going to have extra medical expenses with an illness.
Or even extra business expenses. We have a lot of very serial entrepreneurial families around here who have, multi-generations. So if somebody becomes ill, they may call on one of the other family members, but then they have to pay them.
Yes. And if you and your spouse run a business together, that's great. Your spouse can still work. Do they want to?
Do they want to? They have to put in the extra time.
Yeah. Yes. Do they want to say, you go sit in the hospital by yourself for months on end? I'm sorry, I gotta go bring home the bacon kind of thing, right? Yeah. So it's a hard decision for a lot of families to make if they're in that spot that they unfortunately are often forced to choose to keep themselves afloat and have something for that person to come back to, as opposed to spending that time with the family member that they want to be spending the time with.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that angle at all. So that's a really good point. Before we started chatting here, we were chatting off camera, but you were telling me about this website, the Know Your Risk site.
Yes.
So this is the depressing, happy part. This will tell you how many more years you have ahead, right?
That's one way to look at it. So I did print off my own statistics. So not that I want to share them, but I'm 39, female, non-smoker. So those are the basic criteria that you're entering into this. So it's Know Your Risk, Canada Life. Just Google it and it's easy to find. You plug in, you can do either individually for yourself or you can put in for yourself and a spouse.
Okay.
But for myself, I put in my age, gender, smoking status, and got the lovely, lovely results that I am 40% likely to become disabled before the age of 65.
Ooh.
17% likely to become ill before the age of 65. So like significantly ill, not get a cold or flu or something along those lines. And I have a 4% chance of dying before the age of 65.
Well, actually, that's
not bad. That's not bad.
That's
so my overall risk of having one of these things occur before the age of 65 is 50%.
Okay.
And it's really an eye-opener to think that half of the people I know that fit my criteria are going to have one of these massive life-altering things happen to them.
It's a coin toss, quite literally.
Exactly, a coin toss. Yeah. So it's hard to think of. Unfortunately, women are more likely to become disabled than men. There's a lot of theories as to why that is, but the statistics are women are claiming on disability more often than men. Death and unfortunately for you,
it kind of goes the opposite way. I know this part. This is the part where
men have a shorter lifespan than women. So your risk of dying if we just swapped out gender, the disability would be a lower number and your risk of death would be a higher number potentially.
I think that this is the rooftop thing where the guy will be on the roof and fall off and die, but the women probably try to catch him. Which is why one out this, smart. She's smart enough to not be up there,
right? But she's going to do everything in her power to catch him.
Save him.
I feel like that's myself with my son.
There you go. See?
Yeah, 18-year-old boy. I'm going to become disabled trying to prevent him from dying.
Yes. You're smart enough to not do the things. I don't mean to be genderist and everything, but that is some of the realities of the...
And insurance is one of the few things where we do still very much stick to gender plays a role in it. Yep. And the statistics are what they are. Like it's not something that we can really argue with or deny. There are dozens of companies out there that have all done the research and come up with very consistently similar results. Yep. So it's hard to say that they're skewed. Like it is definitely something that you have to take to a certain extent as being true. It's hard to deny it. Yeah.
Well, if anybody wants to fight me that women are smarter, go right ahead. So I'm willing to lose the battle because I wouldn't know any better. Yeah. Okay, so that was the Know Your Risk. I Googled this. It was Know Your Risk Canada Life. That was the calculator. And it's fascinating, terrifying. Depends on how you want to look at it. Glass half full.
It's a look at reality.
Look at reality. Yeah. That's a good way to put that.
Yeah.
You have some other stories. I don't know if you want to talk about
this. So there's one that I pulled from the Globe and Mail and just highlighted a couple of key points on it. So this is a story of Lynn Fitzgerald, a Canadian woman who she was in 2005 diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer and tumors in her liver. She was given a year to live. Mm-hmm. She quit her job. She then lost her medical benefits because she quit her job. Group benefits only cover you when you are employed with that company.
Sure.
There could be an exception out there. I can't speak that everything follows one rule, but the vast majority of group benefits, you lose your employment, you lose your coverage. Yeah. So health benefits are something that a lot of Canadians feel like, hey, I have them, it's great. Can you maintain that job while you're ill enough to maintain the benefits? So, and not a lot of benefits will cover any sort of disability that caused you to go off of work.
Okay.
So it's a really great idea to delve into your group benefits and know what they cover, because there's often some major gaps there that people are unaware of. Mm-hmm. They think that they're covered. So in this woman's situation, she had aggressive chemotherapy. She was unable to work. She had no health benefits. She ended up going on welfare. So it was herself and her teenage daughter. With going on welfare, she was forced to cash in all her RSPs. She lost all of her retirement savings. So any sort of retirement savings, the sooner you can get started, the better off you're going to be, just because of that accumulated value as it sits there and grows. Yeah. It's really, really hard to try and make up for that at a later date. Even if you were to fully recover and be back to work, it's very hard to try and get back to that situation, and it's not going to be done without sacrifice, for sure. So one of the quotes from this woman that it hurt me to read was that she said, "That's where it went very bad because I didn't die."
Oh.
And it's awful to think that somebody, like, these are quotes from this woman to say, "It sucks, I didn't die." Nobody should ever say that.
You should not.
You shouldn't.
Yeah.
So a year later, she was declared cancer-free in 2006. If you've ever known anybody that's battled cancer, it's not often that you are cancer-free and you go back to your same state of health that you were in before.
Yes.
There's some sort of residual effects from either the medications or surgeries or whatever process you went through in order to become cancer-free. It has a lasting effect. So for her, side effects of the chemo, she's had joint pain, severe short-term memory loss, and can no longer work. So she's depleted all of her retirement savings. She can still no longer work. She's now living off of CPP, Canadian Pension Plan, and provincial retirement benefits. So she is bringing home approximately $1,450 a month. That is a very hard amount to live off of. She said that she lives on her line of credit. She is often, by the second week of the month, out of money.
Yeah.
So this is something that could potentially have all been avoided. And it's really hard to read stories like this on a regular basis. A lot of people think that we have OHIP, we're covered. There are a lot of these treatments and medications that are not covered by OHIP, and it's not necessarily specific to Ontario. This case was from a woman living in Halifax. So this is East Coast, different province, slightly different rules. But there's a website called Can Certainty. So it's cancertaintyforall.ca is the website. And what they do is they're advocating for fair cancer treatment for all Canadians. If you look at their site, it states that British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba have their cancer treatments fully covered, regardless of household income or private insurance. Whereas patients in Ontario and Atlantic provinces are on the hook for these costs. Quebec is kind of in the middle. There's a deductible for them that they do pay. But yeah, it really varies. OHIP doesn't cover everything. It's an amazing option that we have, and I am super, super grateful that we have OHIP. But it is something that there's often caps on medications. There's a note in here from a different cancer survivor who stated that her medication was capped at $3,000, and it's a far cry from the $60,000 a year that she takes for her own kidney cancer. And it's like $60,000 a year. The vast majority of us aren't making $60,000 a year as healthy working individuals. So to put that just into a medication is phenomenal. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of great information in a lot of these articles. Another one was a statement from Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada that they suspect that Canadians living with long-term disability from stroke will increase by up to 80% in the next 20 years.
Wow.
And I think that within Chatham-Kent, we have all heard over and over again that we have astronomical rates here. We have a ton of people living with heart disease and medical issues, higher than a lot of the provincial averages for illness in our area, which we need to address, and we need to protect ourselves as best we can when we can only compensate to a certain extent for what current health we have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of that just sort of reinforces the point that people need to look into this. They need to understand what their options, understand their realities for where they live. And so it's not to say that, one program in one province is better than the other, because there's so many different varying factors. But to understand where you live and what you need, what coverages you need,
Right.
And the best I've ever heard it described is the best type of when you're looking at insurance, it's about making sure that you feel you've reached something that you're secure in.
Yes.
And so you look at all of your factors, because in this person's case, who had, what did you say, 13-year-old?
It didn't specify her age,
but
just
a teenage,
high school age daughter.
You know, in that situation, they may have simply family considerations that will put them at a higher, or maybe require a little more insurance than somebody who isn't, who doesn't have that sort of thing. You know, the kids are off, they're retired and or sort of semi-retired and have a small business. Different considerations, different lifestyles. So
yeah, if you're living on an income that your daily activities don't necessarily contribute to, if you're living off of interest from an account that has been set up and you're just bringing in that money, or from a business that's functioning without you and just bringing in that income, your needs may be small.
Maybe different.
They're totally different.
Yeah.
And every individual is different. If you're the sole income earner, you have a stay-at-home spouse, you have young children. Now what happens? Does your spouse go out and get a job, and now you're ill, and are you taking care of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old? Because that's exhausting when you're healthy.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a hard decision for a lot of these families to make.
Absolutely. Just being aware of time. Is there anything else you want to bring up, or?
No. Anything like these can be so vast in their options. So definitely any time that somebody has questions or concerns, reach out to an individual that works in this. There are so many great specialists in the area, and it's definitely something that you should investigate. You should know what your group benefits cover. You should know whether or not that's going to keep you in a comfortable state. Talk to individuals that have gone through it. Like even though I had an understanding of the loss of income from it, I didn't necessarily have a knowledge of some of the extra things that went on. The friend that I had this year that went through it, we were doing daily trips to London for cancer treatments. And it was a matter of who can drive me today, and regular phone calls out to family and friends. Is there any chance that you're off on Thursday? I need a ride to London. And so then parking expenses and food expenses, and it all just adds up. It's really hard to look at. It's not just medication and treatment. It's an entirely different lifestyle.
It really is.
Yeah.
If people want to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
So my personal number for business is 519-784-8386.
Okay.
My email is pamela.morgan@freedom55financial.com.
Okay.
You can reach me either way there. Definitely something that I'd be happy to sit down and review what sort of business state you are in, or even if this is just a personal thing. If you are an employee and you don't necessarily own your own business, it doesn't exempt you from these sorts of situations.
Sure.
So it's business owners tend to be the ones that they have the extra expenses that are on them, and when you're taking out massive loans and such in order to get these businesses up and started, you really want to protect yourself against having to maintain that debt and not having an income.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's a more of a financial risk with business owners typically, but it's a risk to everyone.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for coming in. This
Thank
was
you.
good. This was a great conversation. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. So, our website, before I forget, is investck.ca. One quick thing to let people know, because I hopefully will have this out today or early tomorrow, is for the whole month of December, we're doing a fun thing called #ShopCK, and that is to talk about sort of the hidden gems that are in the community in terms of businesses and some really neat things that are out there. We've had an amazing response from the community so far, and I see others are picking up the hashtag, the ShopCK, and so if anyone's out there, have a look and discover your community. We're trying to help people do that. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
See you later, Chatham-Kent.